Hello everyone, welcome back to the Maker's Gonna Learn YouTube channel. My name is Lauren and today I'm going to be teaching you how to tool leather with your Cricut Maker or Explore. Did you ever think that you could actually tool leather with your Cricut Maker or Explore? Because personally, I didn't think it was possible. But in today's video, I'm going to walk you step by step through the process and you're going to end up with an amazing leather patch that you can put on a hat or anything that you would like. If you are new to our channel, make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, hit that bell icon to turn on notifications so that you can be notified when we bring you amazing crafts like we are today. Now we're going to go overhead so I can go over all the supplies that you're going to need to tool leather with your Cricut. Before we go over all of the materials that you're going to need, I want to show you guys the difference and how awesome this really looks up close. So this on the bottom was the one that we made with our Maker, and the reason that there is a difference is because we are going to be using 3 tools today if you are using a Maker and 2 if you are going to be using the Explorer. This is the one that we made with the Explorer. As you can tell, it is still beautiful. It just doesn't really get that rich detail like the one with the Maker does. And the reason being is because the 3 tools that we're going to be using is the Engraving Tool. We're going to be using the Engraving Tool, the Foiling Tool with the medium tip, and then our deep cut blade. So if you have been around Cricut for a while, you know that the Explorer, you cannot use this adaptive tool with the Explorer. You can only use it with a Maker or a Maker 3. However, if you do just have the Explorer, do not fret. You can still tool leather. You will just be using the foiling tool and then the deep cut blade. The other materials that we are going to be using is we have our veg tan tooling leather. Now this is a very big piece of leather. You don't have to have this much leather. You can get just small sheets of it, but this is a 4 to 6 ounce veg tan tooling leather. All of these supplies are going to be linked down below for you guys to use those links. We are using hats because we are going to be making a patch to go on a hat. These hats are the ponytail hats. You can get whatever kind of patch you want. It does seem to work better if you have a hat that has more of a flexible front on it. So these are just like the ponytail hats. We have a fabric grip mat. We have our rotary blade, and this is going to come in really handy when it is coming to cutting your tooling leather. We have the EcoFlow Satin Sheen. This is a leather finish, and I will show you guys how we're going to be using that. This is a vintage gel or an antiquing gel. Now this is just the brand that they had at our local craft store. You do not have to use this brand specifically. You can use the EcoFlow brand. I do really enjoy, I think this Satin Sheen, I loved working with it, and I liked working with this one. So I'm sure if you got the EcoFlow antiquing gel, it would be just as good. To attach the patch to our hat, we do have flexible fabric glue, and I also use some DAP Rapid Fuse just to keep it in place while the fabric glue dried. And then we are using a sponge, some water, and then this is just a wool dauber for staining our leather patch. You're also going to need some rubber gloves because just like this leather, our hands are leather. It is hide. It will dye your hands. So make sure you use some rubber gloves. And we are going to be using just transfer tape. You can use strong grip transfer tape. I'm just using the scissor transfer tape that we get from 143 Vinyl, once again linked below. And this will come in handy when you are putting your leather on your mat so that it does not damage your mat or your leather. So after many trials, I have discovered that using single line files, graphics, or fonts is best when it comes to tooling leather. Now, if you wanted to use a file that has double lines, so if you take a regular SVG and you turn it into a pen function, what is going to happen is it's going to notice the 2 lines on the outside. So that will work if you don't have a lot of detail. However, the patch we are making today has a little bit more detail. So you are going, and it is in a monoline style. So that is a single line style. Any design that you do needs to be in a monoline style. Now, monoline files or graphics are not very used. They're not used a whole lot. So we do not have a ton of those in our library currently. We are going to be releasing more and more. We do have our monoline sketch fonts, which would be great if you wanted to put a word, or like you wanted to say mom or dad or whatever on a hat or on a patch. That would be perfect. But we will be coming out with some more monoline fonts. But I just wanted to let you know, today's video, we're really going to be focused on the technique rather than the file that we're going to be using. Now, before we jump into Design Space, we're going to prepare our leather, because you do have to have that leather damp. We have to wet it first and let it sit for about 10 minutes. So we're going to prepare our leather. I'm going to show you how you can prepare your leather, and then we'll head over to Design Space. We'll look at the files, and then we will get that ready to tool on our Cricut. So to prepare your leather, we are going to use a rotary cutter, and we are going to cut off a section however large you want. That will be about where we need. And then you are going to take your transfer tape and you are going to cut off a piece of transfer tape. What you're going to do is you're going to take this transfer tape. Now, if you want the transfer tape to be larger than your piece of leather, that is great. It doesn't have to be. It can be around the same size. This, I was just using some extra so I didn't waste any. So we're just going to lay it with the sticky side facing up. And then the flesh side, or this side of your leather, is going to go down on your transfer tape. And what this is going to do is this is going to not only protect your mat, but also help protect your leather as well. Once we have our leather down on the transfer tape, we are going to come up here and we are going to place our leather around the come down 2 inches and over 2 inches, and place it right around there. And I may do it with this side up because it's slippery. And then we're just going to lay it on our mat. Now, what you need to do, we just have a ramekin of water and a sponge. You need to wring out your sponge to where it's still damp, and then we are going to nice even strokes wet our leather. So it is going to change colors. That is fine. That is what we are looking for. And then we are going to set this aside for about 10 minutes. Then we're going to jump over into Design Space, and once we are ready, this should be dry enough and ready for us to tool. So before we really get started into this process, these are files that I have gotten from Maker's Gonna Learn, and that those files are also going to be linked down below. But this is in a basic cut currently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it over to a pen function. And as you can see when you zoom in, what I mean by double lines is that for each stroke there is a cut file or a pen function on either side. So when we go back to basic cut, it looks just like a single stroke, but then when we change it to pen, the way that it recognizes it is that it has a line on either side. So you can do that. When you make them small, this area, let's say just like right in here, is going to get very, very tight, and it's not going to give you as much detail per se as this one is. See, this one is already in the pen function, and see how it has a single line everywhere. The Cricut recognizes that single line. This is the type of file that you are going to want to use. Now, you can find those files anywhere. Like I said, we are going to be coming out with more of these, but for right now, we're just going to focus on the technique of tooling leather with our Cricut. So we have our file here. What we are going to do, if you are using a Maker or an Explorer, all of these steps are going to be the same. So we are going to first come up here and we are going to create an offset. Now, this offset is going to be however large you want it to be. I'm going to say 0.15 will probably be a really good offset. Okay, I like that. I'm going to hit apply. Now that offset, I'm going to turn into a basic cut function. And I'm going to switch that over to white so we can see it a little better. Now, from there, we are going to turn this pen function, this file, from pen to foil medium. We are going to be using the medium tip. If you have ever used the foil tool in your Cricut, it is the blue tool. Let's go overhead. I'll show you guys. It is the blue tool, and this tip comes out. There are 3 separate tips that come with this tool. The tool, it needs to have two lines, means medium, and so we're going to be using the medium tip. So that's why in Design Space, you need to click medium. So we're going to click medium here. That's going to change that to this gold color. And then from there, we are going to duplicate that 4 other times. So we have duplicated it 4 times. If you are using the Explorer or the Maker, I want you to come over here to the basic cut offset, and I want you to duplicate that as well. And we're going to zoom out so you can see, because we do have a lot going on. So if you are using the Explorer, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foil functions and 2 basic cut. 5 foil, 2 basic cut. What you are going to do is you are going to select them all, and then you are going to align center. And we are going to arrange, we are going to send our basic cut to the back. So both of them are in the back. So now if you are using a Maker, and for this project, I suggest you use a Maker. The Maker just tends to come out a little better in my opinion, because you can use that Engrave tool, and what the Engrave tool does is it scores that leather first so that it opens up the pores of that leather, and then once you go back over it with the foil tip, it kind of hollows that out, and so that your antique can really get down in the grooves of your tooled leather. What you're going to do is you are going to select the first layer of foil, and you are going to change it to engrave. So now, I know our layers panel looks really, really long right now. That's because all of these separate lines are on their own. So we have one engrave, then we have an attach, we have a foil, that's our second one. Then we have a third one, which is a foil. Fourth one is a foil. Fifth one is a foil. And then we have 2 basic cut. We're actually going to move this basic cut back to the back as well. So once we have all those together, we're going to select them all. We're going to go over this one more time. Explorer, you should have 5 foil, 2 basic cut. Maker, you should have 1 engrave, 4 foil, 2 basic cut. We are going to attach them all together now, okay? From there, we are going to see how large we need our patch to be. We're now going to measure how large our patch needs to be. So I think we're going to do about 2.5, 2 3/4 probably inches in height, and then the width will stay the same. So we're going to, right now we're at 4 inches in height. We're going to scale this down to about 2 3/4. Once we have all this finished, we're going to click Make It. Now I'm going to move this down. Remember earlier I placed my leather at the 2 down and 2 over, so I'm going to place this a little below the 2-inch mark and a little to the right of the 2-inch mark. But my leather goes to about the 5, so I'll do it about right in here. And then I'm going to click Continue. So if you can see over on the left-hand side, it has engrave first, medium foil second, basic cut last. So the only thing, there are very few materials that you can do with the Engrave tool. We've done some testing, and we're actually going to use the craft board setting. As you can see, regular leather is not on here, so we are going to use the craft board setting. For all 3 different blades, we are going to click done. Pressure wise, we are going to click more, and then we are going to load our leather into the Cricut. Before we load into the Cricut, I want to show you what this leather looks like. If you can remember, it was pretty dark. So what you're looking for is leather. It looks like it has dried, but it's still cool to the touch. That's what you're really wanting when you are working with tooled leather. You don't want super wet. You don't want it dry. It needs to be cool to the touch where that water has absorbed into the leather. Now we are going to load our engraving tool into our Cricut. Then we are going to load our mat. You're also going to want to make sure all of your star wheels are slid over to one side. I would do it on this right side, and then we're going to click Make It. Once it is finished engraving, you do not want to unload your mat. All we're going to do is open up clamp B, take the engraving tool out, and then we are going to put the foiling tool in, close it, clamp it down, and start it again. Now that it is done with the foiling, if you look at Design Space, it will tell you to load the fine point blade into clamp B. However, we are not using the fine point blade, and I'll tell you why. We're going to go overhead and show you the fine point blade does not have the capacity to cut thick leather like this. So because it doesn't have to register, we're going to be using this deep cut blade. It's got a better angle. It has a longer depth. So we're going to load this into our Cricut. We're going to open up clamp B, take out our engraving tool, load in our deep cut blade, make sure it is clamped down, and then we are going to press start. And once that is done, we are going to unload. And look how beautiful that tooled our leather. And that's just on natural veg tan leather that is with nothing on it, and it looks absolutely amazing. Now, you can just do one pass with a basic cut. However, I have found that doing 2 passes really gets that cut all the way through, and it doesn't give you any, because leather does have, there are different spots in the hide that may be thicker or thinner than others. That's why it's 4 to 6 ounce. It could be 6 ounce, it could be 4, it could be 5. Having 2 passes with the deep cut blade really allows us to get a really good cut on that leather. So now we are going to take this off of our transfer tape, and look how beautiful. I am obsessed with it, absolutely obsessed. This has really quickly become one of my favorite projects to do, but we're not finished there, so hold on. We're going to actually finish out our leather and attach it to our hat, so that will be what we do next. Now that we have cut our leather, I've placed it on a paper plate. Obviously, you can tell I've been using this paper plate for our leather projects. We're going to place it on here. We're going to put our gloves on, and we're going to start out with the Satin Sheen. Now, if you wanted to go in and dye your leather a different color, the EcoFlow has some leather dyes that are amazing if you want a darker patch. I really like this natural color, and what we're going to be doing today, it's called the antiquing effect. So we are actually going to be putting a sheen or a protector over top of our leather. And what that's going to do is that's going to protect the high areas, and then we'll be coming back in with a vintage gel to get down in these low areas of our leather to really give that dimension and give it more of a true tooled leather effect. So first thing, we're going to start out with our satin sheen. I have a damp sponge. It's not very wet at all. I'm going to dip this into our satin sheen. Now this is a very milky substance, and you want to apply this pretty liberally all over your leather. So we are going to apply this very liberally. It is okay that there are bubbles. You can even, we're going to squeeze some of this out and let this sit. Now this will need to sit for a while. You can come back to it after it's dry. This does take a little bit of time. If you are in a hurry, I have found that using a heat gun on a very low setting from very far away may help speed up the process just a little. However, I still prefer letting it naturally dry. So as you can tell, it's already kind of starting to. I do have a patch that I have already applied this sheen to, and that I have has completely dried. I did let that one dry for about 6 to 7 hours, and that's what it looks like after it's dry. So I'm going to move this one out of the way, and we're going to start our next step in the process. So once it has dried, we are going to come in with our vintage gel stain. I'm going to be using a wool dauber. I'm just going to put a little bit on there, and then I'm going to just come in here and work this vintage gel around. Now if you want to do straight strokes, you can, or you can work it around in a circular motion. We'll put a little bit more on here, and then I'm also going to go in on the edges and stain these edges. And then once that is done, we're going to grab a paper towel. We're going to move this out of the way, and then we're just going to wipe this clean. Now there are different colors of the gel stain as well. This color specifically is the tan. There are darker colors. It's still going to color your leather just a little bit, but not enough. You're going to be able to wipe off a lot of that stain, but it really got down into the crevices. And even if you wanted to, you could even come in here and kind of bend it and then try to get in those crevices even more, and just do that and wipe clean. If there were some spots that you didn't think it got good enough, you can bend this leather and open up those seams where it did engrave to get a little bit more detail, and then wipe it clean. And then after that is finished, you can either be done there, or you can add another, you can let it dry, add another coat of the satin sheen if you would like. I personally like it like that. Here is a patch that has finished drying. As you can tell, these streaks will end up eventually going away. So this will be your dried patch. And now I'm going to show you how to attach it to your hat. Now what we're going to do is we are going to add a little bit of our fabric glue to the back of our patch. This fabric glue tends to come out pretty fast. So we don't want to add a ton where it's globbed up, and you can move it around with the end of the glue. And then we're also going to come in, I really like using DAP glue. We're going to come in with some DAP glue, and we're going to add it just to the edges so that it gets a nice. And what I really like about the DAP glue is you don't have to let it sit. It will fuse straight to your hat. So we're going to place our patch and hold it down. Y'all, I swear by this DAP glue. Like, look at that already. It fuses to that hat. And if you'll just keep holding it down, probably for about a minute, 2 minutes, I'd say, to get it good and secure. And that's it. That's all it takes to really truly have a tooled leather hat that looks like you bought it from a store. These would make great gifts for anyone in your life. If you want to make them for yourself, y'all, I'm absolutely obsessed with these leather patches. Now, I want to do a quick review just in case we forgot. Make sure you go back and rewatch this video. Once again, this can be done on a Maker or an Explore. You can do this with both. I prefer the Maker series because it does give you more of a defined look, but you can do it with the Explore series. But for a quick review, you need to use single line graphics. You need to make sure that if you are using the Explore series of Cricut Maker, Explore series Cricuts, you need to have 5 foil, 2 basic cut. If you are using a Maker, you have 1 engrave, 4 foil, 2 basic cut. I know that seems like a lot, but I'm telling you, the results are shocking. I mean, look at this. I absolutely love it. I hope this has inspired you to use your Cricut in ways that you never thought you could. Not only can you make leather patches, you could make leather keychains, you could back these leather patches with 3M and make them leather stickers. Their possibilities are endless with this, and I cannot wait to see what you create after learning this technique. Once again, if you are new here, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel because we bring you amazing crafts all the time. We have new crafts every week, and turn on that bell notification so that you're notified when we are live or when we are premiering new craft videos. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.